line right now, Audacy NFL insider Ross Tucker. Insider calls are brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. Mayo Game Day, be delicious. Ross, if you're the San Francisco 49ers, how are you handling the Brock Purdy situation this offseason?
Well, I'm trying to sign him an extension. I believe that he is the right quarterback for us moving forward. It's the most important position. You've won a lot of games with him. He's a good player. I'm trying to sign him an extension. But what I think is interesting there is what the dollar amount is. What's fascinating to me, guys, is I felt the same way about Tua last year. I would love to see what Purdy would get on the open market. You know what I mean? Like, I would just love to see that, because I don't think there's other teams that would pay him $60 million. I don't know if he'd have other teams paying him $50 million plus. I think a lot of people would believe that, he's a good player that excels in Kyle Shanahan's system. Kind of the same as Tua with Mike McDaniel. When Tua and Jordan Love were both looking for new contracts, what I had said was there'd be a huge difference between those two guys on the open market, right? Like, if Tua was on the open market, I'm not sure what the love would be for him. Whereas if Jordan Love was on the open market, I think everybody would want him and pay him a lot, because I think certain guys are considered certain type of quarterbacks. I think Jordan Love is considered the type of guy that has elite talent that can excel for any team. Tua, not so much. Purdy is in the Tua category. So that's one of those deals where it's like, I think you want to sign him, and I think you tell the agent that. I think you tell Brock that. But I also think you need to be somewhat realistic about what his actual market would be, because you could also just have him on the cheap for another year, and then you could tag him for a year, and then you could let him see what the market is. I think Purdy and his agent are probably smart enough to know that the market wouldn't be what they think it would be. And so they really need to try to make sure that they get a fair deal for both sides, which is not trying to, hit the top of the market. We'll see.
Yeah. Hey, Ross, happy holidays, man. I got so much. This whole situation and scenario is insane. But I told Steiny, what we know the Niners, what they don't do offensively is they don't throw it deep. They don't even try to get a flag. In today's pass-happy NFL, okay, that's fine. But the great Jerry Rice joined our morning show yesterday, and he said maybe Kyle needs to reinvent himself. And I'm just asking you, now all of a sudden Deebo can't get open. Ayuk, people told me, can't get deep. You draft Pearsall with the first-round draft pick, and we're not getting anything from him. So, Ross, what would reinvent some coach's self look like? Because I'm starting to think defenses like Niners are going to middle field. We're not afraid. And it's like an NBA team not shooting threes. Can Kyle really have to go to the lab and reinvent his offense?
Well, on some level, all these guys go to the lab every offseason, right? I mean, they totally go through every game they played and dissect it by not only the games, but also, by certain situations, look for areas where they can improve. The thing I would tell you guys is, I'm already seeing, even when I talk with other coaches, they already tell me about things that are innovative that Kyle does that they are very, very impressed with. I think Kyle Shanahan is low on the list of 49ers issues. I mean, they haven't had Ayuk. He is their deep guy. I think the Pearsall thing, it's just unbelievable, right? You have all the other injuries we knew about with Trent and McCaffrey and Bosa, but then even at receiver, you have the Pearsall shooting. You have Ayuk out. It's just not your year.
Yeah.
I wouldn't I wouldn't take this year and think that wholesale changes are necessary. I would look at it more like, man, this was just not our year, and expect a major bounce back from them next year.
Insider calls are brought to you by Hellman's Real Mayonnaise. You can purchase Hellman's at your local Walmart, Kroger, or grocery store to add extra deliciousness and creamy flavor to your game day dishes this football season. Here's the problem with that, I think, Ross. So I'm looking at the 49ers roster of their big boys. And Trent, like, what? Just think, don't answer. Well, what can you really expect from these guys next year? Trent Williams, McCaffrey, Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Fred Warren, like Kittle, like all those guys have now, with the exception of Kittle, kind of become question marks. Can you really go into a season, expect Trent Williams to play 16 games? Can you really go into a season right now and expect McCaffrey to be the running back he was a couple years ago? Ayuk's probably going to start the season late, and Deebo Samuel might be in decline.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Let me ask you this: what's your alternative?
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying I have one.
You know what I mean? Like, your alternative is what? Your alternative is to try to move on from McCaffrey, try to move on from Trent Williams? I don't think so. They're kind of, whatever that expression is, pot committed right now.
Yeah.
I think at least for next year, I think it's fair to wonder what those guys will be able to do next year and have some concerns about it. I don't think it's fair to try to make changes or to try to move on from them. I don't think that's your best chance to have success. I think your best chance for success is to run it back. That doesn't mean, like, I wouldn't be shocked if they moved Deebo, if they really think Pearsall is ready, but I don't know how you can feel that. You know, Pearsall, I haven't seen very much from him. It's such a shame with what happened to him. So I think they'll run it back. And then I think, depending on how next year goes, it could be, if they had another bad year next year, then you're talking about like a reset, which is a totally different thing.
Yeah, Ross, we had the Devondre Campbell situation, and everybody knew it was wrong. It was ugly. But Deebo, came out and made some comments after the team scored 38 points, 38 points that he went to social media. I'm open, ball not coming his way. Kyle didn't come down on him. He said that's Deebo being Deebo. We had the Pepper situation where he got in his face, and I called him out because I didn't like it. But you played the game. Do you think Deebo's doing himself any favors, and then he goes out and drops a touchdown pass that might have changed the game just last Thursday? Where are you at with Deebo Samuel on and off the field with what he's doing?
Well, no, he's definitely not doing himself any favors, because everybody knows what he said on social media. Everybody knows he wanted the ball, and then he drops an easy pass right to him. You can't do that. That's one of the reasons, by the way, why you shouldn't say stuff like that, is because then you put a big bullseye on yourself like he did and put himself in a really bad spot. Here's what I know. Declining players that make a lot of money and are providing headaches off the field, those are prime trade targets. So that would be one to keep an eye on. I know they really like him as a player and what he's brought the last 5 years or whatever, but if you think a player's declining and they're giving you some off-the-field issues or whatever, drama, and they're making a lot of money, those are the type of guys that usually get traded.
Ross, let me throw this at you as it relates to Devondre Campbell. So what he did, everybody said was reprehensible. He quit on his team. And the way it looks to me, and Bosa mentioned something like this, was he actually might have thought about doing this before the game, knowing that he wasn't going to start, and then answering, no, I'm not going to go in the game. And, okay, here's my question, and go ahead and put the clock on me. Obviously what he did is wrong, but does it say anything about what might be going on inside the locker room that 52 other guys couldn't keep him engaged? Or no, that's out of that's no factor.
I don't think anyone in an NFL locker room ever thinks there's a possibility that a guy will say he's not going in the game. Because to do that, there's something wrong with that guy. Because to do that, knowing you're going to have to then go in the locker room and face all those guys, it's one thing when you hold out because you want a new contract or you're holding for financial security or whatever. But when you start refusing to go in the game when a guy's hurt and your team needs you, now you're screwing the other guys over. That's a different category. And by the way, which makes it even worse or better, I don't know, you're screwing yourself over. He's going to miss out on 3 game checks, the last 3 of the year. Then he's going to go into free agency. Who's going to want him? I don't think it says anything about the other 52 guys because I was watching that game hard. Those other guys like Bosa and those guys, they absolutely play their you-know-what off. So much respect. I was watching Bosa in particular coming off the injury and the hustle, the effort, just so much respect for the way that guy lays out on the line, which, by the way, is probably why he couldn't believe that Devondre would actually consider doing such a thing.
Yeah, Ross, you had mentioned something kind of struck a chord with me. When you look at the totality of this season and the injuries, you played this game, and let's just say Brock is re-up because we know they're not going to make the playoffs this year, and he comes back, he's under center next year. When you look at that team, do you say, okay, I'd bet on the Niners, or do you think there's more going on here to where maybe guys are just aging out? Where are you at with next year's team, this team's future?
Yeah, so I would I'd kind of be all in on the Niners next year. I mean, I think there's a reason why they've been one of the best teams the last few years. Because of how badly this season has gone, a lot of other people are going to be out on them. A lot of people are going to forget what they've been. A lot of people are going to dismiss them. Not me. I think, I remember years living in Pennsylvania where people wanted to get rid of Andy Reid because he had a bad year in Philly, and then the next year they were awesome. Or Bill Cowher or Mike Tomlin, where, okay, well, they had a down year. There's multiple times that people were calling for the Rooneys to fire Bill Cowher. They stuck with him through some losing seasons, and he came back and was able to have the season that he had and win a Super Bowl. That's kind of what I'm not going to say they're going to win the Super Bowl, but I would be very, very surprised if this year isn't an aberration, an anomaly, and the Niners aren't right back in the playoffs next year. A lot of these things that people talk about with locker room and blah, 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 a lot of that's the kind of stuff that people only hear about when a team is losing and things aren't going well. And I don't think they'd be losing if they didn't have all the injuries they had this year.
All right, so you think Purdy's back, essentially?
Well, he's definitely back. He's got another year left on his deal. I mean, they're not going to trade him. He's not going to hold out. He's definitely back. It's just whether or not he has an extension at that point.
Yeah, and I think that's what's interesting, Ross, is are you really going to tell Brock Purdy you got to come back and play for $1 million when they didn't do that with Ayuk, who was making $14 million? You know what I mean? That seems like it would open up the door to another tumultuous offseason because he might hold out, right?
I'm offering Brock Purdy a deal that changes his life forever with $50 million per year and over $100 million fully guaranteed. If he says, I want more, I want $60 million like Dak, I want to be a top 5 highest paid guy, I want to reset the market, I say, hey, then that's your decision, Brock. And more power to you, that's fine. And maybe after this year, you'll be a free agent. But in my mind, that would be him choosing to play for the 1 year, $1 million at that point.
Hey, Ross, before we let you go, I just got to, take your pulse on what's going on around the league. What's going on in Detroit, and do you think all the injuries have them to where they might not get it done? Because I'm liking what I'm seeing from the Los Angeles Rams.
Well, yeah, I think it's cool when I look at the Rams and the Bucks. They both are only 8-6 or whatever, but the way those quarterbacks are playing, they absolutely have a puncher's chance in the playoffs. And I kind of love the idea of those wild card weekend games, like the Vikings at the Bucks or the Packers at the Bucks and Vikings at the Rams. I mean, those are awesome football games. I'm excited for us that it's looking like we're going to get some epic wild card games. As for the Lions, I'm just so sad. Like, I know life isn't fair, but this is like cruel and unusual punishment for Lions fans. This is the year. This was supposed to be the year, and I just think they've taken too many hits now. I mean, you can't lose arguably the defensive player of the year. Now they've lost basically a whole starting defense worth of guys, which is just ridiculous. And they also now lose David Montgomery, who's a huge part of what they do at running back. It's just garbage. It's just those people don't deserve it. They've never been to a Super Bowl, a single one. They haven't been to one. And now this year, where everything was lined up for them, you're going to get everybody and their brother hurt. It's just garbage. It's the worst part of the sport.
Hey,
I hear you.
Hey, Ross, I forgot to let you in on something that we have in common.
Uh-oh.
Here's where you say what?
Listen.
I'm an American Conference expert in football. I bet you didn't know that.
The AAC?
Yes. And let me tell you.
I didn't know that. Why is that?
Because my daughter goes to Tulane, and let me tell you something.
Mensa.
Army got a big break by playing Tulane after they lost to Memphis and knowing their starting quarterback was going to transfer. Otherwise, Tulane had a lot of action this year.
Yeah, well, listen, I don't feel bad for them. I've never seen kids look colder in their life than that Friday night championship game up at West Point. They looked like they did not want to be there at all. And the irony of it is, Army, I think that contributed to them losing the next week to Navy, because Navy just getting all prepped for Army.
Yeah.
Army's trying to win a championship against Tulane, and they had to put all that effort into it. And I think Army, I can tell you for sure, would much rather have beaten Navy than have beaten Tulane.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Next year, you guys can have your AAC championship. Army will take the Commander-in-Chief trophy.
Hey, Ross, I can't let you get out the phone. I told Steiny one more. I just got to ask you this, man, because I've come down this player's road before in the past, and right now I feel like Hercules is playing the quarterback position in Buffalo. Can Josh Allen do any wrong? He's in a zone. What are you seeing, man?
Well, he's pretty clearly the MVP of the league. He is. I said this on Dan Patrick. A lot of people got mad at me. I don't know why. To me, he has the highest ceiling of any NFL quarterback ever, right? So think about whoever you think is like the best quarterbacks ever. Have they had his total skill set? His size, his speed, his arm strength, his brain. No, that's only when he's playing, that's only when he's playing, at his very, very best. We've seen the inconsistencies, but when he's playing at his very best, his upside higher than anybody else's upside that I've seen.
Wow, Ross, appreciate it, man. Thanks for your time today, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Sounds great. See you guys.